Welcome everyone to the Tuesday Night Smite podcast, episode 9, our summer split recap for the teams that did make Dreamhack. Because we've already done one for the teams that didn't, I think 3 weeks ago. And yeah, so the teams that did go are left over, and we're gonna have to deal with those as well. And what we're gonna talk about is really how their entire split went, including Dreamhack, and maybe theorize a bit about what could be happening with them going into the fall split. So yeah, I'm going to be your host for today. My name is the Robbie Dog. I'm joined, as always, by Psycho and Sabo. And yeah, that's going to be our episode. Also, at the end, we are going to hopefully quickly do our own little version of the NRG Draft, where we are just going to pick players the way we would. So stay tuned for that as well. But now to start the show off, we're going to look at the EU side as we usually do. And for that, I'm going to throw it over to Psycho. Psycho, which teams from EU went to Dreamhack, first of all?
So obviously EU had one more spot than an A. That means we send 4 teams to Dreamhack, and those were in the order from bottom to top. With their placement in the summer split, were Rival, NRG, Obey, and Dignitas. It didn't really go that way when you look at Dreamhack.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a bit as well, looking at Rival. I think especially Sabo mentioned that they are Lanimals, so unlike their placement, or unlike in the summer split itself, they really showed up massively quite on LAN.
We already talked about LAN though, so we should just look back at their summer split games.
Yeah, just look back at both, really. I mean, we can talk about their summer split first of all, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, what hurt them the most was the final 2 weeks of the split. I mean, 0-4 over those last 2 weeks. They lost to Dig 2-0 and they lost to Elevate 2-0. Dig, the eventual summer split champions, that's understandable. Losing to Elevate, however, I think you have to put an asterisk beside it because it was without Deathwalker, their star solo laner. But even without a player like Deathwalker, if you're a good team and a top team, you have to be able to at least split with Elevate. But we've all said it before, that set with Elevate was a forgettable one if you're a rival fan, because it was not pretty. But they redeemed themselves at DreamHack, making it all the way to finals and taking Dignitas to a Game 5, which we did last week, was one of the better sets of the SPL in a very long time.
Yeah, I think them losing to Dig online was somewhat expected, but it was also still sort of unexpected, right? Because up until that point, the clear top 4 in EU, I guess you could call them, had not split with each other yet, or had only split with each other yet, from what I remember. And from the records, it looks like that was the case, right? So this was the first time at this split that a team in those top 4 beat another one in there. But yeah. And also, I think we mentioned during the episode for week 5 that them losing to Elevate, it caused a bit of worries in a lot of us, just because we didn't know how they were going to look moving forward, right? Whether in what type of shape they would show up at LAN, because they had shown us this sort of inconsistency that we've seen, that we saw from them during the split. Right, they also split with the poppies, something that is also not really supposed to happen. And I think that sort of inconsistency that we saw had us a bit worried about Rival. Obviously, those worries were not really... didn't come true, so...
I mean, that final week, that loss to Elevate, that just went to show you how important Deathwalker is to this team, or maybe not. Well, my mind misspoke. Maybe it shows you how important that the team is when they're playing together. Having all 5 members there instead of having just the 4 members, whether it be, Deathwalker not being there, or maybe it's Wolfie not being there this week, or Vote not being there the next game, or it shows you that the team is very much a 5-man unit instead of a group of just really talented players. And I think that's what you need to prove that you're a top team, regardless of region, is that you got to play as a team. No matter whether your star player is there or not. If it's 5 men, it's not 4 men and a superstar.
But now, if we look at what the last set of Dreamhack was like, they got the 2 games mostly because Deathwalker was, well, he picked Ares, but we saw that he had support from his support and jungler pretty much all games, so that just further shows how important the team synergy is, and maybe that wasn't something they could achieve with the Little Legend against Elevate.
Yeah, I think it was the big issue in that set, in my opinion, and we saw that Ice struggled a bit, which was probably also partially due to not having Deathwalker in the solo lane, right? Because Deathwalker is normally such a dominant laner that it's kind of hard to really establish yourself as the opponent jungler on that side of the map in the jungle. Yeah, I also think that this entire topic of them being a 5-man roster, just being a solid team that is built on working together, is true more for them more so than it would be for a lot of the other teams. Just because when we look at Rival, at where their players were, looking back a couple of splits, right, they were essentially nobodies, and they came from there. They improved individually, of course, as well, but I think what really made this team good is them growing together and becoming stronger as a team, not necessarily their individual play that they showed.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, before this team really came together, Vote was the only one with any SPL experience, right?
Well, Kalas replaced Trickstank at the spring finals, right?
I mean, as a taking part on a team for an entire split instead of just feeling.
Yeah, I think so.
Vote was the only one with that kind of experience, or that amount of experience on this team when they first got together.
Yeah, I think so. And it's probably also worth mentioning that Vote at the time wasn't seen as a top ADC in EU, right?
I still don't think he's seen as a top hunter in EU, but he has, the teamwork on this team really shines the most, above any other team in the SPL. I think Rival was built on teamwork, and Vote provides exactly what this team needs. He's not a superstar. I think we all in agreement that Deathwalker is the star of this team, but by no means are the other 4 role players. They're good players in their own right. I think, at least from my point of view, that the teamwork there is second to none, and it's all based around the team and not one individual player.
Yeah. What I mean when I say that Vote wasn't seen as a top EU hunter, I mean, I meant to say really that he wasn't seen as even an average hunter at the SPL level, right? Back when he had his on the first split. So I think he's definitely improved from that. But yeah, the majority of the improvement that Rival has made as a team has come down to them improving as a unit and growing stronger together, and that sort of thing, really. So yeah, you're right in that regard, in my opinion.
Yeah, also one thing to note is that they all played together in the Challenger Cup before they became Cyclone and Rival. And it was actually, I think it was May 2016, so they've been together for a year now. Or more than that, a bit.
And what I just think is really amazing to see how far they've come, right? Because they went from a Challenger Cup team, as you just said, to a team taking second place at a big LAN for Smite, which is insane.
Yeah, it seems like.
Go ahead. I got to gather my thoughts real quick.
It seems like it all just started with that one great placement at the, was it Fall Gauntlet in Season 3? And since they just look, I don't know if it was Spring Gauntlet.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Spring Gauntlet this season.
Yeah, it was the Spring Gauntlet. And they just looked really high up since then. They had that one good showing, and that was all they needed to, well, start up and show up in the SPL also.
Yeah, they remind me a bit of the SK roster that we used to have in Season 1, or then going into Season 2, the Fnatic roster. Because where they really established themselves as a top EU team was at Worlds, at Season 1 Worlds. Before that, they were terrible online, right? I'm pretty sure they had second to last place going into, or in the first split of the SPL that ever happened, right? And then going into Season 2, they were consistently a top 3 team in EU. And Rivalry kind of reminds me of that, because their success on LAN really kickstarted the team becoming force to be reckoned with online as well.
I think the thing that worries me the most about this current team, this current Rival team, is look at their online performances against their LAN performances. I think they kind of lucked out this split, because it is, everybody goes to LAN regardless of where you are at in the standings after the online play. But if their online performance mirrors their performance of of the summer split, if they drop a game or two more, maybe if Obey 2-0s them this time instead of splitting with them, or NRG 2-0s them this time instead of splitting with them, and they drop out of that 4 spot and they go down into the gauntlet, the more games you have to play in the gauntlet, the tougher it gets. And I'm not just saying, 8th seeded teams needs a lot of help to get to super regionals, but if you keep winning, you play the next match, and keep winning, and you play the next match, and so it's these strings of matches in a row where you can, realistically, if you're down far enough but you keep winning, you can get 7 or 8 matches in a row. And mentally, what does that do? Because just be honest for a minute. Be able to play 8 games in a row without a break is mentally taxing, and it takes a lot of focus, a lot of concentration to play that many games in a row. And so if Rival falters in the fall split and they drop out of that top 4, and they go into the gauntlet, how many games in a row are they going to have to play? And can they keep their minds right? Because I think this team has the talent to not only make it to Worlds, but win Worlds. That's kind of bold to say, but they're certainly on their way up to that position. It's just this, where are they going to be at after the fall split, after the fall online part of the split? Because it does get tougher the further down you are.
Yeah, but I'm not too worried that they're going to be too far down, honestly. Because I am not sure if this Enix team is really going anywhere or is going to be able to improve over Rival, even though they were so close to split. Because Rival, I think, is also going to take something home from having been at Dreamhack and having played these long best of 5 sets against other top teams, right? And I'm not sure that Enix is going to be able to keep up with that, just because we've seen them be a bit disappointing now 2 splits in a row. And I'm also not quite sure that Elevate is entirely at a point yet where they can compete with Rival. So I'm not sure how threatened even their 4th place is, that I think would put them directly into Super Regionals. But I don't see them going down any further than 6th. I think 6th is the worst case scenario almost. Because I don't see Poppies and Burrito being at a level yet either where they can realistically beat Rival or realistically beat any of the top teams, in my opinion.
Well, it's like, if they do fall from that 4th place, how deep can they fall? Because, like you said, there's not many, like Elevate, Poppies, and Burrito can't really match up to them. And we know what they can do, because looking looking back at the Gauntlet, they played 9 games in a row, and they were placed 5th. So even if they fall out of that 4th place, they would just have to do what they did last year, or at the start of the year. Because they played 3 sets, and all of them went to 3 games, I think. So
yeah,
they are capable of doing that.
Yeah, I think the gauntlet is something that is taxing, obviously, but as I said, A, I don't think they're gonna have to do more than 2 sets in general, and B, I do think they are a team that excels in that kind of scenario as well, in that kind of situation, because of how good on land they are, right? I can easily see them sweeping every other team that is gonna be in the gauntlet 2-0. But yeah, it might be a bit of a problem. We're gonna see, right? It's still quite a long ways off, really, the fall split gauntlet. But we're definitely gonna keep track on it, on how rival standing is during the fall split. Is there anything else you want to discuss about rival?
I don't think we want to go into Ares again. So
yeah, well, I think just Ares symbolically shows really well what rival is good at, right? Because the Ares works because you camp his lane and you as a team get the Ares ahead. And rival, like Deathwalker's success on Ares is not warranted purely on his Ares play. It's warranted on the team behind him supporting him in his Ares play. And I guess that kind of shows how rival plays in general. Just as a side note, really quickly. But yeah, unless somebody wants to dispute me on that, I think we can move on now to our third place team. in EU out of the looking at the summer split by itself purely, which would be NRG. So yeah, what is there to say about NRG, Sabo?
Well, I think the one thing on everybody's mind is, when is it going to happen, or will it happen? We've been waiting, 2-time world champions. We've been waiting for them for 2 splits now to turn it on, and really put everybody else in the dust, like we're used to seeing from this NRG team. And we kind of, 0 losses, 4 splits. That we started to see glimpses of that, and then they got Dreamhack, and the questions returned. For me, this split for NRG was a good one, but it's still a disappointment because they did not return to their dominant form, and it's hard to say that this team has hit a wall or hit a speed bump or whatever adjective, whatever saying you want to use for this team. I just don't know if this team is going to get back to that world championship, 3 times, third time the charm kind of play.
Yeah, I think at this point we have to consider them just to not be that type of team anymore that's just gonna go on and dominate, because we have been through enough different metas now and 2 splits, right, where they did not perform to the level we were expecting of them, and it's kind of hard to see them getting ever back to that level. I think it's time that we start attributing more of their lack of form, I guess you could call it, to the rest of the EU teams that have just really stepped it up in general. Because we've seen other teams competing with them last season even. We've seen it even in Season 2, if you look at Paradigm and at the Fnatic roster even. But yeah, apart from that, but I think now EU as a region has just grown so much that they have just overtaken NRG, and it's no longer up to NRG to find back to their old form, even more so because they have largely done it already, in my opinion. I think it's up to NRG to improve their own form as well if they want to compete with the Obeys, with the Digs, and with the rivals on LAN.
Well, you say they kind of recaptured their own old form. I respectfully got to disagree, because yes, they went 3 wins, 4 splits, and 0 losses. But look at the teams that they won against. They 2-0 Elevate, they 2-0 Burrito, and they 2-0 Poppies. Bottom 3 teams in EU are the only ones that they 2-0. Everybody else, including Enix, split with them.
Yeah.
A split with Obey, okay. A split with Dig, okay. Maybe even a split with Rival, even though Rival struggles in the online portion. But you should be able to 2-0 Enix. Like that should just be, if you're NRG, that should just be a given. That you should be able to 2-0 a team like Enix, and probably 2-0 Rival online.
Well, I'm just gonna come back to that later then. Yes. Okay, now if I'm just gonna skip over a bit. You say you should be able to do that, but the thing is, Obey also split with Enix and also split with Rival. There is a 1 game difference between NRG and Obey, and that is that OB won over Dignitas, and NRG just split with them.
Yeah, I don't think you can look towards them only winning over the bottom three teams as necessarily a negative thing, because you also have to look at them splitting with every other top team in EU, which obviously didn't end up happening, repeating itself on LAN, but still.
I'm going back to the fact that you said they kind of recaptured their own form. If they're playing like they did in Season 3, then they should have. If they're back to that form, they should have 2-0'd Enix. They should have 2-0'd Rival easily.
See, but the thing is, NRG has not had a perfect split since their original breakout split in the fall of Season 2, right? Ever since they have been losing games to teams that they shouldn't be losing games to. This is not a new thing, in my opinion. They were already faltering in the online stages in Season 3.
I'm just still hung up on the fact that you said they're back to old form. I don't see it at all.
Well, I think they're closer to it than they were in the spring, right? I've seen improvement from this team, in my opinion. And I think they're getting there. I just don't think it's going to be enough. That was really my main point. Because we've seen them lose, just to pick a specific set, right? Pick the Dreamhack set against Stig. We've seen them lose late game team fights, which were their speciality. This was the thing that they were by far the best at in the world, where grouping up, pushing for objectives, and team fighting around those objectives. And they have lost that advantage that they used to have over every other team in the world in that regard. Which is what I think is most noteworthy here, is that the rest of the EU teams have caught up to them and are now able to beat them in late game team fights.
Well, if you look at that Dreamhack set, it's, you say the rest of the team, or the rest of the EU that's caught up with them. If you go back to Dreamhack, they should have lost 2-0 to Trifecta. So, it's not just EU that NRG is having, troubles, or is starting to have troubles with now. Top teams in NA are starting to creep up on them, and a year ago, the only team that you could say that about was the old enemy roster with Payne and what was his name?
Whose name?
Yeah, whose name?
Yeah.
Marauder, that's it. I was like,
oh yeah,
couldn't think of the solo letter.
Yeah.
Like a year ago at this time during the Epsilon Invitational, that enemy team with Payne and Marauder and Chaos and everybody else that's on that now part of that E United team, they're the ones that took NRG to 5 games. And go back to Worlds this past season, Luminosity took them to 5 games, and it's the team is struggling not just against EU teams, but against NA teams as well. And yeah. You laugh all you want, but look at their, just look at the past 3 international sets they've been a part of. That enemy Magic at Epsilon Invitational, Luminosity at Worlds, and then Trifecta a week ago at Dreamhack. They won all 3 sets, but it was not easy by any means. And they could have lost all 3 sets. So you say it's just EU that's catching up with NRG. NRG is falling a long way from where they were.
Well, NA in the past was already there at a level where they can compete with NRG, right? We've always seen them have close sets against top NA teams, even going back to Season 2 Worlds again, where I think they also played the Cloud9 roster and also went to 5 games. So I don't see this as a new thing, right? And I see this trifecta roster as potentially one of the best coming out of NA. Even though they were only the second seed going to the tournament, obviously, but I don't think you can take too much away from them. You can't say that they are now starting to struggle against top NA teams. Just the top NA teams, I think, are getting their groove back on, and Trifecta is a good example of that, in my opinion, just because of how strong that they've looked.
I feel like it's just NA used to be actually relevant when they had close sets with NRG, and Trifex is the only example of it now. Because we know what the rest of the NA games look like.
Well, I think me and Sebo both say that we think the United roster can get to a Trifecta-like level, right? Sebo?
I'm pinning my hopes on the United. I'm pinning all my hopes on the United. I think they're the only NA team that's going to... Hey, NA team... They're the only NA team that's going to make it interesting at Worlds, I think. So...
Yeah. And worth noting that Noble has looked good. Noble has made massive steps forward as well. So I don't think
yes,
you can
Noble
just...
But they still have a long way to go. I think E United's a lot closer right now than Noble is. But you bring up Noble. Noble's a team. When we get to NA, when we get down to NA in a minute or a little later on, we'll talk a little bit about Noble more.
No, we won't, because we're only going to be...
No, we won't.
We're only going to be talking about the teams that went to Dreamhack, which Noble didn't.
Well, Noble will come up in the discussion about those 3 teams.
Yeah, just like Elevate and Enix did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think NRG's curve still has been going up since the spring split, where they looked terrible in the first week, honestly. And I'm not sure if they can get to that next level, or if they can fully recover. And as I said, if it's going to be enough to contest, to compete with the other top EU teams. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Well, I'm a huge NRG fanboy, so I just want them to... I want to see them be the top team again. So I'm
Also,
just really biased.
Also, they might be looking at roster changes. But yeah, it could just be trolling as well. But there are Twitter posts which are probably trolling, but still.
I mean, it's Emilito. I hope he's trolling.
He probably is, considering he's Emilito.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think we all directed some criticism towards Timmy for his LAN performances, just specifically at Dreamhack Valencia. But
Go
ahead.
Going back to the Emilito and trolling thing, I'm inclined to believe everything I see on Twitter if it's from anybody not named Benji the First. So take that as you may. But if it's someone claiming roster changes, I'm going to pay attention. It might be a troll, but like I said, I'm gonna believe everybody who's not named Benji the First.
Yeah. Still, what I was going to say is we directed some criticism towards Timmy about his Dreamhack performances, and I think both me and Psycho said that we don't see him getting kicked just yet, based on one poor LAN. But if this sort of form continues, I think that he would be the one that would end up getting kicked. But yeah.
I'm just gonna be tweeted not long ago that he was gonna try his hardest to shine again. So I really don't want him to. I don't want to see him getting gigged now.
Well, that tweet can be taken one of two ways. Either the team's giving him another chance to shine again, or that they kicked him because they didn't think he was playing well enough, and he's wanting to prove them wrong. He's going to try his hardest to prove them wrong.
Yeah,
So,
just maybe he's pulling an MLC stealth. So yeah.
I'm scared is all I'm gonna say. I don't want them to.
Yeah, it would be kind of sad to see this team falling apart, right? But at a certain point, it has to be an option.
the one thing about Demi is who are they going to get to replace him? Because I think the other three top teams in the EU have their solo laners pretty much locked in, not going anywhere. So you're looking at a solo laner that's not the caliber or not as good as Demi is if you look to replace him.
Well, as much as I like Demi, there's Zalia. Like, I don't know if he was kicked or left, but he's no longer on Enix.
Not even a discussion. Demi is miles better than Zelia.
Perhaps.
That wouldn't even be a discussion to me.
Yeah, what you were saying, if they were to kick Demi, who would they bring in? And I think Zalia is the only option.
Or
From
Game
this-
Hunter. He hasn't done anything since Season 2, but still, Game Hunter.
I think
Yeah, let's
is on a Challenger Cup team.
Also, I think he's a
So-
hunter.
let's go back to the dust off the old players of Smite. Just bring back Comfrey. Comfrey will replace Demi.
Confrey. He was actually like back in the day, back all the way in the day. I was very impressed by his performances at Worlds. Right, because he was seen as one of the weakest solo laners probably there, but he showed up big. So yeah, Confrey, bring him back, give him another chance.
Yeah, we saw Maniac going back to the SPL after a break.
Yeah, but Maniac was always good. Unlike Confrey.
All right, let's
move on.
stop reminiscing about the past.
Yeah, let's move on to our next team out of EU, which was obviously Obey Alliance. So, Psycho, how did their split go?
If we're just gonna talk about the split, Obey had basically what I would say was a great split. If we're going by what Sabo said, they had a horrible split because they split with Enix and Rival. But they managed to snatch a win against Dignitas in the last week, and it actually gave them the only loss they had. Dignitas, I mean. Again, they went 4-3, also beating the bottom three teams, which is Papi's Elevate, and Burrito. But the fourth win was Dignitas. And I'm just really interested in what Sabo thinks of Obey now that talked bad about NRG splitting with Rival and Enix.
Well, my question about Obey is, have finally seen their ceiling? Because they looked, after Super Regionals last year, making it to Worlds and how they performed at Worlds, they looked like they were on a team that was on the upcoming part, and they were really finding their best play. And, that cultivates with the spring split champions. Now, see, Rival beat them, took them out of, Dreamhack and ended their chance at repeating in the summer. So that really brings the question to me: have we seen Obey finally hit their top level? Are they going to be that season 2 Fnatic team where they're always finishing second or third, but never at the top of the ladder?
Well, they've already done more than Fnatic by actually winning a LAN, right? So that's something. But I don't think the Obey we saw at Dreamhack Valencia was up to the same level than the Obey we saw during the spring finals. So I'm not too worried about them just yet, because I think they still have that level. I think they showed it during the online stages. And I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be able to return to it. So yeah.
Yeah, they didn't look that great at LAN. But then again, it might have just been because they were facing Rival. Gonna repeat it for the third time. As I both said, they are all animals. So I think their online stage is still pretty good. But will that be good enough for Worlds?
Yeah. I'll be worried when they become unable to access that performance that they had in the spring finals consistently, right? That's the point at which I will really get worried, because if they can't on LAN, they're just not gonna be a team contending for titles, in my opinion. If you look at the other teams that are gonna be like Dig and like Rival. But assuming they can, they're still a team that can compete, in my opinion.
Also, if it doesn't work out, they can just keep Ataraxia and Prime again and kick everyone else and get a new team.
Yeah. And call it Hungry for even more.
Worked last time.
Well, I bring up. I want to reiterate that Obey's still a top team, but the split for me, for them, very like I expected to see them, flex a little bit of their power, show a little bit of their power, and yeah, they didn't lose a set, but even the sets that they won were kind of like, okay, won, but you didn't impress me a whole lot. I mean, outside of the digs, them beating Dig 2-0, Burrito, I believe, had a huge lead in game 1 and threw it away. And correct me if I'm wrong, Elevate played a good set with them as well. So it wasn't the dominant performance I was expecting from the Spring Split champions.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's something that you can expect with how competitive EU has looked during this entire season, really, because you have to remember that we still have 4 teams or 5 teams that can take games off each other, or that do take games off each other in pretty much random fashion online, and I didn't expect 2 of those to really solidify themselves as a large distance above all the others. Looking at online play, right? I was never expecting Obey to essentially be the clear-cut best EU team online this split. I was probably expecting them to be the best, or to compete with that best spot with Dignitas. But I don't think you could expect them to just dominate EU, honestly, which it sounds like you did.
Well, again, I'm going to ask you this question: have we seen them peak? Was winning the spring split, was that their peak, or can they actually, looking at the rest of EU, are they a team that can win worlds?
See, looking at how they performed in the spring, I think they had a peak, but I don't see a reason why they can't have a second higher peak at Worlds next year, or in the fall split and at Super Regionals. Because when you look at their performance in Valencia, as we said, we didn't really see the best version of Obey that we have ever seen there. But as I also just said, there's not a whole lot of reasons to suggest that we can't ever see it again, in my opinion.
So, what you're saying is that they... can you compare them to NRG right now? Like, can we make that statement that they can... that both NRG and OB just have to get to a better form to beat rival, basically?
I don't think it's necessarily that Obey is not usually at that type of level, right? I think it is just that at Valencia that they were not. Online, we have seen them being more than able to compete with any other, with the top EU teams right now, the two that got first and second at Dreamhack, Dig and Rival, right? And I think it's really the LAN portion, specifically at Dreamhack, where they didn't look as good as they did at Spring Finals. Online, not so much.
Yeah, but again, something we talked about last week. Is there a... like, do you want to stick with a team that you know performs good online, but you're not sure if it will do good on LAN?
See, I think whether a team performs on LAN is more down to how their individual players perform on LAN. And from what we've seen from Obey, all of their individual players can perform on LAN. So the team as a whole can as well, right? Because we've seen them perform well on LAN as well in this at Spring Finals. So I don't think they're suffering from the same issues as Space Station. I just think this was one poor LAN from them, and as long as poor performances at LAN don't become the norm for Obey, I wouldn't consider them a poor LAN team per se.
I think you can take all the top teams in Europe and make a case for why they are where they are, or why they should be the number one team in Europe. But I don't know if putting Obey in the category of poor LAN teams, because they did win the spring split LAN. But you can also make an argument that, you know, they lost the LAN because Rival was the better team. And I think we still all have Pretty Prime as the top mid laner in Europe. still have Ataraxia's top, 3 hunters, and then Captain Twig's top 3 junglers. So, you can make the argument for any team, but the argument for Obey is that they are all so good in their individual roles. Perhaps better now than they have ever been. It's the difference between them and Rival, other than Rival being Lanimals, is that Rival's teamwork is better than Obey's. And I think we saw that at Dreamhack, right? We saw 2 evenly matched teams, but the teamwork later, and as the games got later, favored Rival. And I attribute that to Rival being together a lot longer. For 2 members of Obey, this is the first or the second full split together. Rival's going on 4th or 5th split as a team, so the teamwork's going to be there. I don't want to say that it was down to the fact that Obey is a bad team on land, because they're not. I just think the Rival is a better, teamwork team, and that brings me back to the point: have we seen Obey peak? I think in a way that we have. Their performance at Worlds last year, beating Eager and then taking NRG to 5 games and then winning the spring split. We saw a team that was on the rise, and now we've seen the team kind of level out a bit. And is that level higher or lower than the other teams in EU? I think it's higher than all but 2 teams, and I think it's the teams that you're looking at in the finals of Dreamhack. I think Rival can win Worlds, Dig can win Worlds, Obey can win Worlds, but out of the 3, I would say Obey's probably the 3rd most likely at this point, and that's what I mean by peak.
Well, I think the Obey that we did see on LAN at Dreamhack individually just also wasn't that good, or wasn't as good as this team can be, right? Because we didn't see anything particularly great from Pretty Prime, if you ask me, which is a player that can definitely step it up and is part of Obey's big win condition, in my opinion. And we didn't see Twig have the dominating LAN that we were really expecting him to have. So I don't think their level is below Dig and Rivals if those 2 players specifically show up a bit more than they did at Dreamhack. So I'm not sure we can call this a peak, just because, or we can call this the peak, just because this team still has room for improvement, if you ask me. They just had a bad LAN. I don't think there's anything really more that you can read into that, honestly. Psycho?
I don't know if there's... I can't really say anything to that. Like, after hearing what you said, I just have to agree that what you said was true. Yeah, they just had a bad LAN. Even when we made predictions, it was... we expected Captain Twig to be the MVP.
Well, you two did.
Or at least me. Yeah, and it... yeah, you didn't talk about it, he didn't really show up much. Especially not on his Naja. I really don't know what to say to this, honestly.
Yeah, just the main point is we don't think Obey has peaked. I guess that's all there is to summarize, except Sabo. Sabo thinks they've peaked. And I do understand your reasoning, right? But I think you're reading a bit too much into it, honestly.
Well, it's in my view, it's they have kind of settled down after their spring split championship win, and haven't been as impressive. And you said, winning games is one thing. The way that they look when they win games is a completely different thing, in my opinion. Yes, winning games is the most important, but you can tell when just by watching a player in specific game that some of these players have kind of, going back to how Scary D was playing at the beginning of the spring split, how well he was playing and how well he could, how he could have been considered the best player in the world during that spring split, and now look at him now. And I don't think the Obey players have fallen quite that far, but they have definitely slowed down a little bit. Held off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They're not playing as well individually as they were in the spring. And that's just my opinion on Obey right now.
Yeah, just as I said, I don't really agree with that as far as online is concerned. And I think this LAN is more of an outlier than the norm that we're going to see from Obey. So yeah, but we'll see. Honestly, we'll see once Super Regionals happen, assuming that they're going to be there, or once the Gauntlet happens, if they do drop that far, which I don't think any of us are really expecting to happen. But yeah, Obey, we're going to see. So
now we go.
Yeah, as the host, I will now lead us to the last EU team that we're going to talk about, which is obviously the team that did win the split itself and also won Dreamhack, Team Dignitas. Sabo, you can take over. Tell us about them a bit.
Well, Dignitas was probably the team that had the best split, but it's also the team that you would expect it to have the best split, just because the way their schedule was set up. They had Elevate, Burrito, Enix, Poppies in that first 4 weeks, and they really didn't have to face anybody that was on their level until they got to week 4 and week 5 when they played the other Dreamhack teams. So 5-1-1 for the split, given the way that their schedule laid out and how good they are as a team, exactly what you expected from Big. And being the top in EU, going into DreamHack, and then beating Black Dragons in the first round, beating NRG in the second round, and then going to 5 against Rival, taking it in 5 against Rival. Dig was a team that pretty much did what you expected them to do. The second place at the spring finals, and they win the summer finals. It's not a team that came out of nowhere like Rival did at the spring or the spring gauntlet. It's a team that has been good since the start of the year. It's a team that was good at the end of the spring split, and it's the best team in the world right now because they won the summer finals. So it's just a team that did what you expected them to do, and that's you expected them to win, and that's what they did. So
Yeah, I think at the start of the split, or looking specifically at how spring finals went, the big worrying thing was how maybe they would match up against Obey, and it became another worrying thing when we looked at them getting 2-0'd in the final week, obviously. But they were fortunate enough, I guess you can say, to not run into Obey at LAN, and if they had, they probably wouldn't have run into a Obey playing at the top of their potential. So being able to avoid that a bit, I think, made Dignitas a really good looking team overall. Just, you know. Well, obviously they won, so they have to be doing something right.
I think that Dignitas has a really strong team right now with the players they have in. Because right now you can say any one name on the team and say that player is basically a superstar. Even Arkil now, like, he was a new player on the team compared to the others, and he was the best or the second best player at LAN. With zeros up there, I think. Like, everyone on the team just looks pretty much perfect or near perfect right now. And they are not together for long, so they are just also building up that synergy. And I think they'll just look better going on.
Yeah, I think you can. There's not a lot of things you can really criticize with this team, right? Because you do have those all-star players, those guys that can carry you in pretty much every game. Arkil has really established himself as being able to do that as well. We've seen Threat do it, obviously. We've seen Variety do it, obviously. We've seen Zeros having a lot of success, a bit more quietly than the rest of the roster, if you ask me. But there's just not. Yeah, Trix is just always there as well, and he's always also doing flashy stuff. So yeah, he just
Trix
can't.
carry, okay.
He can't carry because he's a fucking support. He can support.
Show your support. Oh man.
Supports only lose you game; they don't win them.
I beg to differ.
No, it's just that's how it is. If your support fucks up, you lose the game. If your support doesn't fuck up, you can win the game off of the performance of other players. Support built the foundation on which the rest of the team stands. They're very important and stuff. But yeah, I think this is what makes that team good, right? Is that they have those carries that can come from 3 or 4 positions, and it's just hard to shut them down. First of all, and they just play individually at such a high level that it's always going to be tough to really beat them.
I'm just gonna go back. If your ADC doesn't show up, you lose, and if your ADC shows up, you basically win. If your support shows up, it's all good. If he doesn't, he fucks the game up for the ADC, so the ADC loses, and that loses you the game. That's basically how dual lane works.
Yeah. So, Dig is good. Is that all we have to say about them?
I would say so. Yeah, Dig's good. And what else? I mean, they were the consistent team for me this split. Like I said, they did exactly what you expected them to do, and that was to win. You know, going into the nerd the nerd in me, I still see Obey as their kryptonite, making a Superman reference, but they're still a good team, and if they, I think we've seen that if they avoid Obey, that they can win. They can pretty much win every land they go to if they avoid Obey, and Obey could still, they could still have a 5-game set with Obey where they come out on top, much like they did against Rival, but you got to assume Obey, with how they play against Dignitas and the struggles Dignitas has with that particular team, that Obey would win a majority of the time. But still, you expected Dig to win coming into the split. They did exactly that. They went on to win Dreamhack. So they're a good team. There's nothing else you can say about them. Individual players as a team, you say supports can't win you the game, but they can lose you the game. Well, Trix Tanks Geb can win you a game. Trix Tanks, we didn't see Bacchus, but we saw Fafnir plenty of times from Trix. Ports don't get enough love. I'm going to stand up for the sport here and say Trix. The stats don't show it, but a lot of the times the shields, the coerces, the stuff that the support does leads to these kills and leads to wins and leads to championships. So without a good support, without a support that knows what the fuck they're doing, pardon my French, your team's in big trouble. So
yeah. Just the thing is, like, your careers can be as good as it gets. Still, if your hunter doesn't hit their autos, you still lose. Right? That's the thing. That's the thing with support, is you are in a position where you can set your team up, and if your team does things right at that point, you win the game. But it's really the combination of both that wins the game, right? And obviously, Trix as a support is amazing at what he does, and that's why Dig always has this solid foundation on which the other players can win games, in my opinion, in combination with Trix. So yeah. But obviously this is not degrading the support role in any way. Just to clarify, right? I don't hate supports. Trust me. I really don't.
Glad you clarified that, because that was going to be the topic of the Reddit post.
God damn it. We could have gotten so many views.
Tuesday night Smite, episode 9, post-summer split, a.k.a. Roby hates supports.
Yeah. Psycho, say something controversial, please.
As an ADC main, I find this offensive.
No, just say that something like Zeros' god pool is way too small.
I was actually
that makes him a terrible mid laner.
I was actually about to say that, like, 3 gods for Zeros is still enough because there's only 2 bans from the enemy team.
I'm a frontliner main, so I stick up for my solos and my supports because I'm main frontline.
Hey, I main assassins, so.
Yeah, I'm ADC, so you see.
Still, supports are important. But pretty much. That's it. We're not gonna go into more theoretical stuff.
If you're losing, you can always blame them.
Yeah, it's good.
Everybody blames the support. Nobody wants to blame the jungler, though.
Everyone fucking blames the jungler.
I know, because 90% of the time it's the jungler's fault.
No, it's always the support's fault. At least 87% of the time.
All right, if my jungler is on the other side of the map, not doing anything, maybe securing a fire giant minions, and I've got the enemy mid laner and the enemy jungler in my lane, in dual lane. Whose fault is that?
It's
We've called, hey, it's a 4-on-2 over here. Get your asses over here and help us instead of sitting in the lane and doing nothing.
it's
At
the
least they
mid's
want
fault,
to.
obviously. Right? The support the jungler always has to conform to what his mid does. So that's the thing. If I'm clearing camps, it's just because my mid isn't holding waves for me, and I have to get farm somewhere, and I can't fall behind because then I'm gonna be useless in the mid game. So sorry, you just have to ward better and pay attention. Also, it's probably the mid that didn't call missing, so it's his fault anyway.
All right, let's get back to Dream. Let's get back to
Yeah.
this.
I have no
Argue.
problem talking about all the other roles except ADC.
Yeah, because you just stand in lane and hit autos.
Yeah, that's the one. You got the easiest job in the world. Just hit your autos.
Just
You hit
hold
your
down
autos,
left
you're going to be
click.
fine. You don't even need abilities. Just build crit and penetration and just hit your autos.
Yeah.
Well, I can only play Chronos, so I can't do that.
Well, then you have to hit your one, I guess. But you have a stun, so it's easy to hit.
Yeah,
Let's actually
Chrono.
move on. I bet
That
Sabo.
not easy to hit.
I bet Sabo still really wants to talk about NA. So, go ahead.
Not particularly, no.
Which teams went to DreamHack from NA? Tell us that first.
We can skip over Dreamhack, or we can skip over the NA teams. There's not really much to talk about, but
There's a lot to talk
much
about.
like EU, much like EU, from top to bottom, as far as placing goes at DreamHack, third team was, coming into DreamHack was Luminosity. The second place team, due only to the reason that Space Station 2 owed them, because they had an identical record. Trifecta was the number 2 team, and then Space Station was the number 1 team coming into DreamHack. And that concludes the NA portion of the episode.
No, there's a lot to talk about in NA, right? Because we just didn't talk much about Dig, mostly because they are good. So, by that logic, there is a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to NA.
Because, they're not good, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. And I'm the NA guy, and I've been defending them ever since we started this podcast. Outside of Trifecta, there's no one else I can defend, or at least not the teams that we're going to talk about. We've talked about E United and Noble and how they're on the up. But out of the teams that actually made it to DreamHack this split, the only one worth talking about is Trifecta, but we're going to talk about the other two anyways. First one, obviously, is Luminosity. For a whole lot of the split, for a majority of the split, we were talking about them being the best team in NA. And then week 4 comes around, and they lose 0-2 to E United. Then they split with Trifecta, and then they split with Team AI. And it looked like they were collapsing. And realistic, we talk about this before, how one game can mean the difference between making it to land and not making it to land. Luminosity's case is very true, because if they did not find that win against AI, E United makes it in as the number 3 team, and Luminosity goes home. So, very disappointing for Luminosity, in my opinion, because we did see them as the top NA team for so long of a time in the split.
Yeah, it's also because they had a schedule that really catered to them as well, right? At least at first, if you look at it from this point, right? Because they faced obviously ALG in week 1 and split with them, which was a bit worrisome, I think. But it also, I think we attributed that more to ALG being really good in this week than necessarily Luminosity being weak. And then they played Noble Space Station, which obviously improved as the split went on. We're going to talk about them in more detail later on. Then they played Flashpoint, which was the choke of the league. So their sort of split, starting to split, set them up to be a team that was looking good, right? And it was the end where that fell apart. Because we started to see some cracks in Luminosity's armor.
Well, even before the split began, when we were making our Dreamhack predictions, we all had Luminosity as that number 1 team, or at least number 1 or number 2. You know, we all had them as one of the top teams, and they did not look that way later on in the split. They looked like a 6th place team, a team that should not even have been at Dreamhack. Right? Am I making stuff up, or do we all see it that way?
Well, at least I do, right? We talked about how our hopes for the fall are Trifecta, United, and Noble, to a large extent, and only one of those went to Dreamhack. The other 2 spots were taken by Space Station and Luminosity. So it's really this weird thing in NA where the entire split long teams have been so inconsistent and have been finding their form to the point where their top teams from our point of view didn't actually go to Dreamhack, or at least most of them didn't. So yeah, I would agree with that probably.
Yeah, when we just look at the predictions, me and Robbie had Luminosity as the first seed. Saber had them second because they looked that way before the split began and at the start of this one, and then they just fell off. I don't know if it's the inconsistency we talked about or if Luminosity is just losing their edge. But if this continues, they might not even be... They probably won't be in the top 3 anymore.
If something doesn't change, I don't see them being at Super Regionals. Whether that be a part of the 4 teams that are in the Super Regional tournament or one of the team coming out of the gauntlet. I don't. If something doesn't change, I don't see them even being at Super Regionals as a wild card team in that wild card round.
Yeah, I definitely don't think they would be there as well. I agree with.
See, I'm not sure if NA has the depth to keep them from reaching 4th place, right? Because we'd really have to see Allegiance step up and have to see Space Station keep their consistent level that they had in this split, which I don't think are necessarily going to be happening. I think Allegiance could be an entirely different team going into this split. We're not entirely sure how the bottom 2 are going to look, right? We are expecting Flashpoints probably to be relegated, and probably the scraps of AI that are left to also be relegated, potentially. But I'm not sure that NA has the depth of teams to keep Luminosity from reaching Super Regionals either as the 4th best team in the region or as the team that makes it through the gauntlet, right? Don't think we've seen enough yet to really judge that.
Isn't the gauntlet both regions?
No,
I don't think so.
Well, yes, the gauntlet will consist of both regions, but it'll be both regions individually. It will not be NA versus EU.
Yeah, I think wildcards is going to be both, but not
Yeah,
the gauntlet itself.
Both gauntlet winners from EU and from NA will be. Just think back to last year and how the wildcard round played out in Super Red Regionals last year. How ALG was the wildcard winner from North America, and who was it from EU?
Well, the wildcard winner from EU.
EU. Yeah.
If you're talking about wildcard, there wasn't a wildcard winner from EU.
No, I'm talking about the gauntlet winner from EU last year.
Oh,
during the fall
gauntlet.
last year.
I think it was Dig, the old Dig roster.
Okay, yeah, Dig. So it was ALG and Dig, and then Luminosity and Flashpoint joined them because they lost the NA sets, and then Sanguine and Orbit joined them because they lost the EU sets, and then that was the wild card participants. So it was the wild card. It was the gauntlet winners, and then the losers of the first set of games that participated in the wild card games. So if it follows the same format as last year, I can name teams that would probably finish ahead of Luminosity to the point where they won't make it even as the wild card participant out of NA, as the gauntlet winner out of NA. I can name 4 teams right off the top. Space Station does so good online, that they could find themselves at the top 4 team. We've already talked about Trifecta, or we haven't talked about Trifecta, but we expect Trifecta to be a team that's in that discussion. We have talked about Mobile and E United already, so those 4 teams can make it into Super Regionals as the top 4 NA teams, and then you got ALG being that other top team that could finish above Luminosity in the gauntlet, and so Luminosity could, even without the remnants of AI or this Flashpoint team, Luminosity could find themselves outside of Super Regionals.
Yeah, I just think it's less likely that they will be than it is that they want, right? That they will be at Super Regionals than it is that they want. Just because I think I don't see this Allegiance roster, however it ends up being right now, or however they end up reforming, being better than Luminosity overall, and being able to win over them in a best of 3. And if it comes down to that, I think Luminosity is going to go through the gauntlet. I think if Space Station does make roster changes, more specifically, we're going to talk about those more specifically later on, I think. If they end up making roster changes, I could see them dropping out of the top 4 to Luminosity, and Luminosity just making it to Super Regionals through that. So far, I'm not entirely sure if they're not gonna be there. It's a possibility. I just don't see it as the most likely thing.
Well, we're talking about what could happen, what needs to change. I think we've brought up Scary D in the past, how he's been the worst player on the team at points, and in my opinion, he's been the best part of the team at points in the Mets in their history. What needs to change? Is it Scary D? Does Baskin need to move out of mid and back into the solo lane where he's so dominant? Does the legendary dual lane of Bear and Jeff need to call it and go their separate ways and find new teams? Or is Mask the problem? I don't know. I can't say for sure. I think the majority opinion is the fact that Scary D needs to go. What needs to change? we've talked about this before. I know we've said Scary D, but is that after DreamHack? Is that still the consensus, or is it something else?
At least for me, it still is. I think he is the weakest link on the team right now, because Masks has been looking good. Baskin is looking amazing in mid. I think he's the best player on the team right now, and Jeff and Barra have always been a good duo lane, even though Barra has probably dropped in level a bit recently, at least looking at this summer split, in my opinion. But yeah, I think the core issue with this team is how Scary D is just not good enough right now to compete with the EU solo laners, right? Because we saw that at DreamHack. Believe he got soloed twice by Maniac, so it's something to worry about, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with Robbie. I do think also that Baskin is the best player right now on Luminosity. Because I still think about the last 2 games in the summer split. Played solo in both. And even when they lost, he had his score looked like they won. His damage looked like they won. Because he just looked really great. And that wasn't just the one game or one set. It's just Baskin looking good overall, unlike some other players on Luminosity right now.
Yeah. I think still the solution to the problem could be moving Baskin back to solo, just to open up this mid role. Because Baskin is obviously also an amazing solo laner, right? He's been amazing in both roles he's played so far, and moving him back to solo opens them up, as we've talked about before, to getting someone like the best in mid, or potentially bringing back MLC Stealth, even though I think personally think it's a bit unlikely. But yeah, I think both are potential solutions. Either just flat out replacing Scary D with another solo laner, or if you can't find the proper one, which, let's be honest, they probably can, because Divios is likely going to be a free agent as well. Then I think the other solution is to just move Baskin back to solo and have him do his thing there and be dominant and get a good mid.
Well, there are 3 possibilities for me. They can bring in Divios, they can move Baskin back to solo lane, or they can bring in Walrus. And I think all 3 are good fits for the team. But if they decide that Scary D was not the problem and they go somewhere else, or look somewhere else, it's hard to break up the duo lane of Jeff and Barra. But if they look somewhere else, like you said, Barra has not been playing well lately. Zapman is a free agent. It would be a huge surprise if they replaced Barracuda with Zapman, but you got to consider it a possibility, right?
Yeah, you can just bring in Saproar. Potentially as well. Just swap the dual lane.
I don't think that would happen.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think even one member of the dual lane on LG will leave. Scary seems like the only good option to me. And the replacements would be a solo laner or a mid laner. Granted, that Baskin would have to move back to the solo lane. And there are some, like Sabo said, there's Walrus, there's possibly Divios, and maybe even some of the older players like Matty Pocket get to come back.
Omega
Omega as well. Yeah, I I really like Omega, and I think if he, Barra, and Chief would come back together, it probably wouldn't be that bad for the team. Just looking back at what happened when the whole Cloud9 roster came back for the Eros Saturnalia, or whatever it was called. They didn't perform that well. So who knows?
Yeah, it's just I think we're all in agreement that LG sort of needs a change, right? And if it's gonna be a change, it's just gotta be scary. But yeah, we're just casual plebs anyway, so who cares about our opinion? Okay. Now, are you ready to move on to the second best or the second place team out of NA?
Well, I am, because I was right about Trifecta at Dreamhack, at least.
Yeah, we were all right. We all said that they were gonna be the best looking team out of NA. And they were.
Y'all were high on Space Station, don't lie.
No, we were low on... We were not high on Space Station, we were low on Rival.
Which meant you were high on Space Station out of default.
No, we just... We said... I can quote us from that fucking podcast. We said... Space Station might make it furthest, but they are not gonna be the best looking NA team, because that is gonna be Trifecta.
Yeah, it's actually exactly what we said about the NA teams.
Yeah.
You can look it at Sabo.
It's a good thing there's a video of it, so that we have proof. Sabo.
Well, let's talk about the split anyway. Who wants to start?
I can take it. So Trifecta, they looked really good overall. Just looking at their record, they had also had this advantage of facing a relatively new United without their proper leadership just set just yet in week 1, right? And managing to get a split against them. And then they faced the two teams that at the start of the split were looking like the weakest ones, Noble and Flashpoint. So it was also sort of 2 free wins for them. And yeah, from that point on, it was a bit less successful overall. But they still looked really good, right? Overall, I think this play was really good for them. They placed higher than I expected, at least, because I was expecting them to maybe be a middle of the pack team, which they didn't end up being, right? And it looks like they finally really found themselves as a team and are looking to improve and to have a chance against EU opposition, which we also saw at Dreamhack, obviously.
Well, I think you're right that they caught United and Noble early before they really found their stride, and that helped Trifecta out a whole lot. Free wins against Flashpoint and, at the time, Eager, though they later changed their name to Team AI. The loss 2-0 against Space Station hurt them because they did end up with a tied record, but with the 2-0 in Space Station's favor, they were able to find that spot ahead of Trifecta, which in the long run didn't hurt Trifecta as much as it did Space Station, because Space Station did end up having to play Rival first, and we saw Rival make it to the finals of Dreamhack, and where Trifecta got a team that they realistically should have beat in NRG. completely had energy on the ropes, like we said last week. Completely, should have found that 2-0, but energy was able to stretch that game out to a point where none of trifectas usually did not matter. But going away from that particular one set and back into the split, I've said the fact that they caught E United and Noble early, but before that, those two teams were able to really find their stride, really helped them. I do think I had them as possibly a third team making it into Dreamhack. It might have been something else, but I thought Kiki coming into the solo lane wasn't really an upgrade, but was an upgrade for the team based on how Kiki played. He really much plays like that Demi type of character, that Demi type of play style where he is playing more for the team than he is individually, individual notice. And I think that's what differs him from Walrus in the way that, Walrus might be the overall better solo laner, but Kiki plays a little bit more of the team-based role. And I think that's what put Trifecta over the top for this split. And, now that Eonic has retired from the SPL, and at least a big hole in that support role for Trifecta, just based on Kiki's playstyle, Kiki could make that move to the support role for this Trifecta team.
Oh yeah, it's actually something I hadn't considered yet, because we've seen.
I'm not gonna...
Go ahead.
Just quickly, I'm not gonna start any rumors, but Incan recently started playing support again on stream. The first day was that his title was playing support, Throwback Thursday, and then he just continued playing it. So maybe we could see Incan going to Trifecta as their support.
Yeah, but I'm saying Kiki is an option because he has flexed to that role before.
Yeah, they have multiple options in general, right? Because as we said, there are solo laners that are going to be available, Divios and Walrus, the same ones that will be available for the LG side.
We're assuming through process of elimination, Scary D could be a solo lane choice for Trifecta as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so as we said, there are options available for solo, and there are options available for support. Because we saw Pain the Beyond leave, or being kicked from the United roster to start as a split, and he could obviously also return to this Trifecta team as a leader for them. So yeah, there's just multiple options in both scenarios really, which is a good look for Trifecta, right?
Yeah, we talk about having that flexibility as a team thing, but we also you gotta think when they're making roster changes, that flexibility of roles is huge as well. I mean, we brought it up last week where the best has played solo lane before, and if Luminosity brought him in, and they can switch roles at week from week between who's going to play mid, Baskin or the best, who's going to play solo, Baskin or the best, and it could be that flexibility gives them a lot of options. Well, Trifecta has that same choice when it comes to roster changes, and they're forced to make a roster change because Eonic left.
So,
and with Kiki being able to flex between the two positions, leaves a lot of options for Trifecta, and that only helps Trifecta.
Okay, so hear me out. You bring in Incon and the best, and then you can swap Incon between support and mid. You can swap Kiki between support and solo, and you can swap best between mid and solo.
you're kicking Herwin in that situation, and I don't think Herwin. I think Herwin's probably one of the best mid laners in North America right now.
Yeah, that's why it's a joke.
You didn't say it was a joke. You said take this as a possibility.
Yeah, but it was a joke.
Hear me out. You didn't say this is a joke.
It was totally a joke. Why are you considering this? Like, why are we even considering them swapping roles between matches? That is.
Because y'all brought it up last week.
Yeah, it was a joke last week as well.
I mean, NRG did it once upon a time.
Yeah, as a joke, I think.
Yeah, as a joke. But hey, they did it.
Sabo, please, you don't have to take everything I say seriously.
Starting to get that.
So yeah, still. They have a lot of options. That's basically the main thing. They look good in the spring. Ionic leaving's gonna hurt, obviously. But they have options to replace him that could put them to the same level. It could even improve them, potentially. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm not entirely sure. Also, just to add, if they are going to get to that same level back, or if they're going to recover with a new support / solo laner as quickly, right? Because they're only going to have one split with them, which is kind of going to be tough, if you think about it.
Yeah, they don't really have an option though.
Yeah, of course they don't, but still, it's still probably gonna hurt them in the short term.
Yeah, I definitely think they're not gonna play as good as they did at Dreamhack, at least not immediately.
Yeah, but it should still be good enough to contend for a top NA spot.
Yeah, just because the rest of NA is just looking like luminosity.
Yeah. Sorry, Sabo.
Well, I've already said that I'm putting my entire hopes and dreams on E United, so.
Yeah. So, is there anything else to say about Trifecta?
I'm still looking at them as a super regional team.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yeah. Well, as I just said, I think they can contend for a top 4 spot, assuming they make a good roster change, and find some form fairly quickly, like within the first couple of weeks. I think they can make top 4. Otherwise, I don't think there's going to be enough teams not making top 4 that are going to be close to their level at the end of the split that can really contest them in the gauntlet run. So they should be a lock for super regionals, or more specifically for the wildcards sets. But apart from that, I'm not entirely sure if they're gonna make massive waves in the fall split at first. Because if we look at their Dreamhack performances, right, they looked like by far the best NA team there. So we would expect them, if they stuck together with Ionic, to have a dominating performance potentially going into the fall split, unless United and Noble actually get to that high level. Without Ionic, it's going to be harder, but it should still be possible for them to make LAN. So yeah. But I still think that concludes Trifecta. Let's move on quickly to the number 1 team out of the summer split, which would be Space Station Gaming. Sabo, you take it from here. Sabo.
It's about the best way you can describe Space Station. That But I don't know what that is to say about Space Station. Their online performance. We touched this last week when we talked about the DreamHack review. They're a different team online than they are on LAN, and it's mainly comes down to Homie Faye being so much better online than he is on LAN, and through as the split progressed, and as the team started to, as we got a better idea of which teams would be going to DreamHack and which teams would not be going to DreamHack, we saw really what Space Station was all about, and how the stars of the team were very much Annister and Homie Faye, and the others were huge role players. Jigs and Bedium and Final K were all individually good players, but the team very much revolved around how well the other, how Annister and Homie Faye were playing. And when they got to LAN, Homie Faye's issues at LAN reared their ugly head again, and they just looked like a bad team. And I don't know. We said this about Luminosity, something has to change if they want to find success. And whereas it was the solo lane for Luminosity, very much the jungler for me in Space Station. And that's hard to say because Homie Faye is such a good player. If you continue to have issues at LAN and your team is making it to LAN, every split, if you're losing in the first round of that LAN and you're the reason why, you've got to be afraid of your spot on the team, because you might help them get there, but you're costing them money at these LANs. Wins equals money. And if you're not helping your team win, if you're causing your team to lose, and you're hurting their checkbooks, their pocketbooks, their bank accounts, you got to be worried about your spot. And Homie Faye has to be worried, in my opinion.
Yeah. We talked about this last week as well. Just the fact that going into this split, it's a special situation because we're going to have a gauntlet LAN before Super Regionals. So you can really ask yourself the question, if you're Space Station, do you want to go to LAN with Homie Fe, probably having one of the top 4 seeds just because he's so good online, going directly into Super Regionals? Or do you want to make a change, likely fall down to the gauntlet due to that change, and try to climb your way through that and make it to Worlds or to Super Regionals through that? Because those are really the two options I see them having. It's either you change Homie Fe and you try to get to LAN and have a chance at LAN, or you keep Homie Fe and you just accept that you are going to lose at LAN.
You bring in DJ Bernicus and switch him from match to match when they're on LAN, and keep Homie Fe for the online stages.
It's brilliant. Or you switch, you bring in the best as a sub, then on LAN you switch Andy back to jungle and have best play mid.
Oh, that's next level.
Yeah. It's also not serious, by the way.
Yeah, I kind of figured that much. But bringing in DJ Pernigus sounds like a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know too much about other junglers that would be available in NA. But out of those that I do know, DJ is probably the best option that's gonna be actually available. So he seems like probably the obvious choice, if you ask me.
Didn't Zapman also say he would be willing to play jungle? Be at the chance.
I don't know.
I believe he said that before. Yes. I don't know if he would, especially with a hunter like Vedium on a team. Not throwing shots at Vedium or anything, but if you're going to have Zapman in the jungle, you're taking Zapman out of his best position and probably a better option in the hunter role than Vedium is. So.
Yeah, like that would always be a sort of questionable move, just because of that here. Because it's somewhat hard to justify having potentially one of the best hunters in the world on your team and not having him play as a hunter. So yeah, I'm not sure if if Satman would be the right choice of them. He's obviously also very unproven as a jungler. And yeah, I'm not sure if a team like Space Station that is attempting to be a top team in NA can afford to do the same thing. Can afford to do that, right? Bringing in an unexperienced jungler. Because Eager is a good example of why it can fail. This team fell apart because they kicked DJ and brought in an inexperienced jungler in Sam.
Yeah. Space Homie Faye is not the answer, in my opinion, though. And whether it is bringing in Zapman in the jungle or putting DJ Pernicus in that jungle role, like I said, it's hard to say that the team would be better off without Homie Faye. But knowing that you're making it to LAN is different from, having that chance to go farther in the LAN. Because making it to LAN, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no money for last place.
At LAN?
Yeah.
I think so. I think there is money for last place. Pretty sure, actually.
What LAN?
Just
I think
any
there is
LAN.
anyway. Yeah.
Well, still, the money is bigger the further you get along. And you got to think, if Homie Faye's costing you money by causing you games, just making it to LAN now is not enough. You've got to progress further in LAN. And if you want to be considered a top team, not just in NA, but in the world, you have to advance further than just making it to LAN. Homie Faye, I love when I get to watch him online. When it comes to these LANs, I'm not going to pick any team that he's on to win the LAN. So I don't know what that says about. I don't know what that says about my opinion of him, but it's not high. And I think Space Station, if they want to have a legitimate shot at Worlds, they need to find somebody else.
By the way, there is a prize pool for last place at LAN.
Yeah.
For the summerfinals, it was 7,500, but as you said, for second place, it was 40,000. So that's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, tiny difference.
Tiny bit.
Yeah.
That's 1,500 versus what, 9 or 8,000 apiece.
Yeah. So yeah, I think As I said, I think it depends on what Space Station want to be as a team. If they want to be a top NA team, they keep Homie FE. They win online, and they hopefully never face strong NA teams on LAN and get decimated by them. If they want to be a top LAN team, potentially, they have to make this risky move and kick Homie FE and risk just completely failing online and not even qualifying for LAN, and then never making any impact at all, right? The risky move is still kicking Homie FE, because Homie FE is pretty much gonna guarantee you LAN, in my opinion. If you're Space Station, you're good enough to make that pretty much every time. But it is probably the right move if you actually want to go to Worlds and want to go win Worlds, because that should be the goal. And I think for a lot of players on this roster, looking at the likes of Aninster, the likes of Vicium, it should be the goal, and I think it is.
You bring up the risk versus the reward factor. You risk not making it to LAN by kicking Homie FA, but you also give yourself a shot at a higher reward by kicking Homie FA. So it's risk versus reward.
Yeah, but would now be the good time to take that risk?
Well, as I said, looking at the fact that there's going to be a Gauntlet LAN, I think so. Because you're going to get to LAN anyway, this split, to the Gauntlet LAN. And if you manage to do well at the Gauntlet LAN, you are in Super Regionals, in the wildcard bracket at least. So right now is probably the perfect time to do it, or the perfect time would have been the spring split, because you also had a Gauntlet LAN there. But yeah.
But would a new jungler gain synergy and get together with the team fast enough to be better than Homie FA?
Well,
in this
If
state?
you pick the right jungler, I would say yes.
Yeah, and we have at least 2 months until the Gauntlet LAN, I think, if not more. So I'm not entirely sure when it's going to be, but I think at that point you could have been able to build enough synergy that you could make it through the Gauntlet. But yeah. The other question obviously arises is, if they do bring in another player like DJ, who's more of a role player, are they gonna have enough carry potential left, right? Because at that point you're pretty much gonna have Aninster, and if you have one carry, we looked at it with Allegiance and Cyclone Spin, it becomes an issue if your carry doesn't go off, and the same type of issue could happen, could befell Space Station Gaming. Is that a word, befell?
Yeah, befall.
Yeah. So
I think I do believe you make a good point there. If it's just Aninster and they bring in another role player like DJ, who's going to step up into that other carry role, and I think conventional wisdom would say Vetio needs to step up. But I'm also looking at a player like DJ and how he played for Eager, and the roles he was able to fill for Eager. We know Final K likes the Terra solo. We know Final K likes the odd solo picks that aren't necessarily Bologna and Osiris. Maybe bringing in DJ frees up Final K to carry. Who's it going to be, I think, is the question that needs to be asked if they do bring in somebody like DJ.
Yeah. And obviously our option they have is always bringing in Sapman instead of Vicium, because Sapman is that carry type of player. So bringing him in would increase their carry potential as well, probably assuming that Vishium himself cannot transform into that type of player.
And I believe Vishium can if he really put that kind of effort into it. I think Vishium could be that potential carry player. We just haven't seen it from him.
Yeah. So, Space Station. I guess the sort of conclusion is that if they make roster changes, we're gonna be looking at them, at how they perform in the fall split. If they don't end up making any changes, then we're not really gonna be excited about this roster, just because we're suspecting them they make LAN, then they lose at LAN, and then they're not gonna be a factor that is gonna be at Worlds, just because they won't make Worlds. Does that sum it up nicely?
You're right. They're a lot like Flashpoint, and they're a lot like Dig. You know what to get. You know what you're getting from them. They're not going to surprise you. You know they're making it to LAN, but you know they're going to lose LAN.
Yeah.
And I only compare them to Dig and Flashpoint because you know exactly what you're getting from those two teams as well. Flashpoint's going to lose every match, and Dignitas is most likely going to win every match.
Yeah, the comparison works for me, at least on some level. Is there anything else we have left to say about Space Station and just this split in general? I guess that's a no.
Other than the fact that it was a very entertaining split, but all SPL splits are entertaining to me. So
yeah, I thought it was a good one as well. EU was a bit more dull because it was more consistent than NA, if you ask me. Even if the overall level of play was obviously much higher. But yeah, entertaining split, definitely. We saw really good play as well. Like just thinking about how close the top of EU was, the level of play that we saw there during the regular split and during Dreamhack especially was astounding. So I was really happy with this split as well.
I feel like it was way too short.
Yeah, I think this fall split one is actually also going to be only 5 weeks.
Yeah, I want the 10-week long splits back.
Yeah, I like those more as well, especially for the fall because it's the most important split of the year, right? Just because it determines who goes to Worlds.
see, I don't mind the 5-week splits as long as you have the fall lands like you had last year with the Group A, Group B, those group lands. I think that was the most entertaining part of it for me.
Yeah.
And so the 5-week split wouldn't bother me if they had those group lands at the end of those 5 splits.
Well, I would see the 5-week split with group lands more as a 9-week split, honestly. Even if half of it has a different format, obviously, but still, it kind of goes into in the same direction, right? It's the similar thing. The overall split is really consistent of both. You have the placement stage and then you have the groups. So I would be fine with that as well, but from what I know, that's not what we're going to get this year, which is kind of sad.
It is kind of sad because we did get to see a team that none of us expected to make Super Regionals last year make it in Sanguine. Coming out of those group lands, Sanguine really found that spot, and I think under this year's format, if it was the same, we had the same teams last year, in this year's format, I don't think we see Sanguine in Super Regionals. Where last year, under last year's format, we really got to see a team like Sanguine kind of make a run at Worlds, even though they didn't really work out.
Yeah,
We got to see a team that we didn't expect to see. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the other
We're not-
good. The other thing it would be good for is to filter out those space stations with homey FEs, right? These space stations with homey FEs, the teams that are only good online and really shit the bed on LAN, because group stages are played on LAN, and if you're a bad LAN team, you're gonna get dropped out of those. So yeah. Would give Space Station even more of a reason to kick home Yeffy. Yeah.
Let's move on to the fun part of the. Let's have some fun now. I'm
Yeah.
ready to have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's put the cry fest of NA behind us.
Okay. So what we're gonna do now is do our NRG Draft. For that, I'm gonna show you a different website than the one I have open right now, which is this random number generator. So yeah, all of you can say a number now, or just both of you, between 1 and 100. I'm gonna type mine in chat as well. Just type yours in chat, please.
All right. Oh, y'all are going on the low side. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
going to use the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Okay, so we've got
Oh,
15
that's
from me.
everything.
We've got 15 from me, 19 from Psycho, and 42 from Sabo. Ah,
That if you don't know, if you've never seen the movie or never read the book, that's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference.
yeah, I know. But yeah, so
I'm letting the listeners know.
oh yeah, I forgot we have listeners. You're right. So anyway, and I'm gonna roll a random number now between 1 and 100. The guy that is closest to it will get first pick for his team captain. The second pick, obviously, and so on. So yeah, let's roll. It was 70.
Alrighty then.
So Sabo is getting first pick. I'm getting last pick. Sabo, which team captain do you want? Wait, give me a second.
I actually got the worst possible placement, I think.
I did. I got the worst possible placement. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and take Barracuda.
Psycho.
I take. I'll go with Raffer.
Okay, in that case, I think I'll take Ataraxia. Okay, so as for the other players, I can start now because I had a last pick as far as captains are concerned. Guys, guess who my first pick is gonna be?
Oh my god, I can only wonder.
Yeah,
It's gonna be Mirage, ain't it? You're picking Mirage, right?
something like that. I think he's just a tiny bit better. I'm gonna pick Adapting.
Who didn't see that coming?
Yeah, no one did. Okay, so now it is Psycho's turn.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pick Deathwalker, I think. We can do that now already.
I would thought you would have picked Emilito, your lover.
Hey, you could pick him. Explain yourself.
I hope he's not gonna pick.
You know, it's actually kind of
Well-
smart considering we both already have a hunter.
Yeah. That just occurred to me. So, I'm going. Well, I get to make 2 picks in a row, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm going with my first pick. I'm going to take Yemen. And then I'm going to pick up Benji.
Psycho, your turn.
Right, now I can take my pick, right? Oh, okay.
This, by the way, this is your last EU. You can only pick one more EU player.
Yeah, I'm gonna save it for later. And I'm gonna pick Baskin right now for the mid lane.
Yeah, okay. This is gonna be hard. I think I'm gonna go with Variety for solo. And for my second pick in this round, I'm gonna go with... this is hard. I need to think. I'm probably gonna go with Chicks. Yeah, I'm going with Chicks. Who cares?
I wouldn't expect you to go with Jigs, honestly.
Who would have? Let's talk about in the end. You can tell me who you would have expected me to pick.
Well, you got a second pick, right? Because you're third.
Yeah, I did both of mine, Variety and Chicks.
Oh, okay. Well, you're down to one player left. You got a mid laner to pick.
Yeah.
Well, I'm missing an ADC and a
Jungler.
jungle. I'm just gonna pick Emilito now.
All right, you got to pick an NA jungler.
I know, that's why I have to take my time to think about it.
All right, so I got support and jungle left, and I'm gonna go with Captain Twig in jungle, and I want to pick Jeff, but I'm going to go with Trickstank. So there's my final pick. Trickstank is my final pick.
Yeah, good choice.
So now it's me, and then Robbie gets his last pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe Ask is still open.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Andancer for the jungle.
Wow, you're a real ass. Oh God.
Wait. You got you're Ataraxia? You're Ataraxia, right?
Me?
I'm Ataraxia.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You're Ataraxia.
Yeah, and I wanted.
Do you have to pick NA or do you have to pick EU?
I have to pick NA because I have Variety, Adapting, and Ataraxia from EU. Oh God, I hate you so much, Psycho. Words can't explain how much I hate you.
I'm not shocked about the Andy pick. I'm shocked about that nobody picked Pretty Prime.
Well, you guys both picked your mids.
Yeah, well, I picked Yemen.
Yeah, why did you pick Yaman? Prime is better than Yaman.
Because I wanted Benji and not Demi.
Huh? That doesn't make any sense.
I already had 2 EU, so I needed Emilito, so I can't pick Pretty Prime.
Yeah, I know, but you guys.
we had it was Everybody had to have at least one energy player.
Yeah, why are you doing this to me? Okay,
Go
last
ahead
pick.
and make your fun.
Last pick, MLC Stealth.
Okay.
So yeah, the full teams. I could post them in chat actually. Formatting is probably gonna be fucked up. Yeah, formatting is indeed fucked up. Still, just to go over the teams again. Team Sabo is Benji, Captain Twig, Yaman, Trickstank, and Barracuda as the captain. Team Psycho is Deathwalker, Andinster, Baskin, Iraffer as the captain, and Emilitu. And my team, Team Roby, is Variety, Adapting, MLC Stealth, Chicks, and Ataraxia. So yeah.
Any weird picks anybody wants to discuss other than...
Yeah, what I want to hear is what Psycho was expecting me to pick.
Yeah, actually, looking at it, I honestly, Jigs was like, I didn't even think of him. I was more expecting Aurora or Jifindla.
Can't pick Aurora. Aurora's a captain.
Oh right.
Yeah, I would have I was like the three I was thinking about were Chicks, Aurora, and Jeff.
Yeah,
And-
I kind of forgot Aurora's a captain, but still I expected Jeff.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking Jeff away just so Sabo can pick him to get the sex tank lane. But I thought I would not be an asshole and pick someone away
Wow.
from someone else, like a certain someone else in here right now.
You could have took Jeff. I was leaning towards Trickstank the entire time.
Yeah, I thought you were leaning towards Jeff. I didn't know you were leaning towards Trickstank, so
I just think that's going to be a funny combination. Barra and Tricks. That's...
yeah, I think so
Oh,
is Chicks and Ataraxia.
I think at the very least it should be a comedy team. Should be the team full of comedy with Jeff or with Barra and Tricks.
See, but I have 3 carries in Variety, Adapting, and Stealth, and I have my role player at dual lane with Chicks and Ataraxia.
No, really, I have I have Deathwalker. I have
Yeah, who
Basket, I have
cares?
Emilito, and above all, I have Andinster in the jungle. Like, what are you gonna do?
I still hate you. Like, I do like Stealth, I just don't think he's better than Andy right now. I really wanted Andy. Why did you have to be so mean?
I think we should just get a point for every pick we got right.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Like after the captains actually pick their teams.
Okay, we're gonna look back at it. Yeah, sure. Good. But I think
I got the best team. I do.
no,
what
you
do I do?
didn't. You didn't.
No,
You
you
don't have adapting. Please.
I got Twig, Yaman, and Benji.
I got adapting and stealth and variety.
I'm the one who got the dueling that actually plays together.
Yeah, but they're not that good right now. Raffer's just gonna feed, like he always does.
No, if Kronos is not banned, my team wins.
My team is always gonna ban Kronos,
You don't know
and
that.
you're always gonna have like 15 to ban like 15 different junglers against mine because I have adapting.
My team's going to pick whatever Benji wants, and then Twig's going to play the other warrior that's top pick in solo lane, and Yaman is going to play Chiron, and Barracuda is going to play Jingwei, and we're just going to beat the crap out of everybody.
Yeah,
Well, I
good luck.
definitely have-
Good luck against variety and Deathwalker, mate.
Yeah, I have Ares.
Yeah. And I have
I have Ben.
every god.
I have Benji, who doesn't care who he's playing against in solo lane.
You know what we're gonna do? You know what Variety's gonna do? He's gonna do a throwback to Season 2 and pick Chronos solo. Away from Psycho.
I mean, I guess he's used to picking Chronos for zeros.
Yeah.
But he won't do it.
He totally would.
He won't take Chronos away in the role he doesn't even belong to make someone else suffer.
Nah, he's played Chronos solo before. I mean, he's been terrible. He was terrible back then, but still, he's played it before.
Andy play jungle.
Yeah, well, Andy probably doesn't play any of the new junglers, which I think is pretty much just Dachi, so who cares?
I'm really disappointed we didn't see Dashi at Dreamhack.
Yeah,
I said no.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyway, our draft is done. Psycho is a bit of an ass, and we won't be working with him anymore.
No.
And with that, I think it's time to end the show.
I'm supposed to blame the support.
Yeah, but we don't have a support here. I still see Sabo as a solo main. So I have to blame you. But yeah. Do you have anything else to say in your defense? Either one of you?
I don't have to defend myself.
Yeah.
This win.
It's a matter of opinion.
I picked Anister jungle. Eat my butt. Ain't apologizing for anything.
Also, do we have any shout-outs to give to anyone before we end the show? I guess that's a no.
Not this week, no.
Yeah. In that case, that was it from the Tuesday Night Smite podcast. If you did like this episode, please actually leave us a like on whatever platform you were watching it / listening to it. If you want to be notified when new episodes come out, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on SoundCloud. We will always post a news episode there every Tuesday. You can follow our Twitter for various stuff we post there. We haven't actually posted that much recently. But yeah, still. And with that in mind, oh yeah, our Twitter is Tuesday Night Smite, in case you didn't see. It was in the bottom left corner of the video, literally the entire episode long. Still. Yeah, with that in mind, thank you all for listening or watching to our podcast. Thanks you two guys for being here with me today. And good night. Good Smite.